Now you can go.
Thank you very much. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to start off with a few comments about our economic plan. Then I'll turn it over to Sean, who is going to talk about some key action that we're taking to build the infrastructure that Canada needs to get more homes built and to make our communities great places to live and raise families. Then we're going to hear from Seamus on the screen, who's going to talk about how our government is cutting red tape to get major projects done and to create more jobs and economic growth. Our economic plan is about building a Canada that works better for every generation, where younger generations can get ahead, where their hard work pays off, and where they can buy or rent their own home, where everyone has a fair chance at a good middle-class life. Nous sommes déterminés à offrir une chance équitable à toutes les générations. Pour y arriver, nous devons créer de bons emplois pour les travailleuses et les travailleurs et faire croître l'économie d'une manière qui profite à tous. L'inflation est passée de 2,9% en mars à 2,7% en avril. Pour une quatrième mois consécutive, l'inflation au Canada se situe à l'intérieur de la fourchette cible de la Banque du Canada. C'est une bonne nouvelle. En fait, l'inflation est actuellement à son niveau le plus bas depuis 3 ans et la croissance des salaires dépasse l'inflation depuis maintenant 15 mois. And Canada is now at the forefront of the global race to attract investment and to seize the opportunities of today and tomorrow. Au cours des 3 premiers trimestres de 2023, le Canada a attiré plus d'investissements directs étrangers par habitant que les autres pays du G7 et le 3e plus grand nombre d'investissements directs étrangers au monde. Our government is making the necessary investments in Canada and in Canadians. That absolutely includes housing. We have put forward the most ambitious housing plan in Canadian history, a plan to build nearly 4 million homes by 2023, and we're building the housing infrastructure that is necessary to support our vibrant and growing communities. You're going to hear more from Sean about all of that. Today, the House of Commons Finance Committee continues its study of the Budget Implementation Act, and I want to take this opportunity to encourage all parliamentarians to pass this bill as soon as possible. The bill will deliver vital budget measures to secure fairness for every generation and will help the economy grow in a way that is shared by all. It will ensure that major projects that are critical for our economy get built faster. It will do this, for example, by improving the efficiency of the impact assessment process, and we're going to hear from Seamus about that. It will also help major projects get built by fully implementing the Clean Technology Manufacturing Investment Tax Credit and the Clean Hydrogen Investment Tax Credit, as well as extending the Mineral Exploration Tax Credit for 1 year. Taken together with the FES implementation bill, we will have 4 of our major ITCs fully passed into law when the BIA passes. That is a very big deal for Canada's industrial plan. This is how we make sure to attract more investment, create more good jobs, and at the same time promote a clean economy. The BIA legislation will also stand up our new historic $5 billion Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program. That will facilitate Indigenous equity ownership in major projects in the natural resource and energy sectors and help ensure that Indigenous peoples can fully participate in our country's economy. Crucially, the bill will also unlock housing supply for Canadians to live in. Lorsque le projet de loi sera adopté, nous serons en mesure de sévir contre les locations à court terme qui ne respectent pas les restrictions provinciales ou municipales. De plus, il prolongera de 2 ans l'interdiction d'achat des résidences canadiennes visant les acheteurs étrangers parce que les maisons doivent servir de chez soi aux Canadiennes et aux Canadiens et non pas d'actifs spéculatifs aux investisseurs étrangers. La loi d'exécution du budget fait partie intégrante de notre plan économique visant à bâtir un Canada au service de toutes les générations, en particulier les jeunes Canadiens. Un Canada où ils peuvent aller de l'avant et où ils savent que leur travail acharné sera récompensé. While Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party look for any excuse to cut investments in Canada and Canadians, our government is acting now and acting with purpose, with a fiscally responsible economic plan. We know younger Canadians are counting on us, and we won't leave them behind. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to Sean.
Thank you so much. Bonjour et bienvenue tout le monde. C'est un plaisir d'être ici pour discuter des fonds pour soutenir du logement avec des fonds pour l'infrastructure. It's really important if we're going to solve the housing crisis that we equip communities with the tools that they need to satisfy the demand that they're seeing. That's going to require that we invest directly in infrastructure to ensure the communities have the capacity to support the homes that will be constructed over the next number of years to solve the housing crisis in the respective communities. We wanted to try something different. Traditionally, when we've made investments in infrastructure, we've put money on the table and agreed to cover a particular portion of the total investment, rather than insisting on certain changes that would drive a social outcome or that would make it easier to operate and maintain the infrastructure that we're funding. This is the idea behind the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund. What we've decided to do is to put money on the table, though it may not be our primary area of jurisdiction, because we want to be part of the solution to the housing crisis, but we don't want to just put money on the table and walk away. We've decided to do things differently by saying we're making money available to cities that make changes that will make it easier to build homes and cheaper to maintain infrastructure. A big part of the way that we can do that is by insisting that changes are made that make it easier to maximize the capacity of the infrastructure that already exists, including by zoning more areas for multifamily dwellings, by adopting 4-unit as-of-right zoning to ensure that where there are water pipes in the ground that can support small apartment buildings, they're being used to support small apartment buildings. The cost of continually expanding infrastructure outwards from a city core is too expensive over the course of the life cycle of that particular asset. And by adopting more density, we can make changes. We have to do everything we can as well to reduce the cost of housing. For our part, we have reduced taxes on home construction with the removal of the GST. We have put low-cost financing on the table during a high-interest rate environment to help reduce the cost of building for builders. We're moving forward with a new initiative on public lands to help reduce the input costs of construction. But importantly, we can't just accept that as we bring costs down, that municipalities will drive costs up by increasing development cost charges. The impact of increasing development cost charges is effectively placing a greater tax on housing. If you expect people to continue to build housing, you can't increase the cost by continually increasing development cost charges and expecting there to be no impact. In order to qualify for the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund, you're going to be required to put a freeze on development cost charges at the level that existed at the time of the announcement on April 2nd of this year. We've had an opportunity to discuss with a number of provinces, a number of municipalities, the prospective investments that could come to their community should they comply with some of these terms. And I'll be very much looking forward to getting money out the door in the second half of this year and signing deals with provinces and territories who are willing to come to the table over the course of the same time frame. It's important, though, to understand that while there may be communities who decide they're not going to avail themselves of the federal funding, this is not the only thing we're doing. We've also tasked the Canada Infrastructure Bank to develop a program, the Infrastructure for Housing Initiative, which has now completed its first set of deals in Manitoba through low-cost financing with flexible terms over the course of the life cycle of an asset, in order to make sure that communities who struggle with the ability to get that cash up front to build the infrastructure can have that concern removed from consideration as they move forward to build out the infrastructure that they're going to need. There's going to be a lot of work ahead, sitting down at the table with cities, with provinces and Territories on this and other funds. But I should say I look forward over the next few days to sharing some positive news about new agreements that will be reached with certain provinces in the country and new funds that will be rolling out to continue to support the housing needs that we see in communities across Canada. Thank you so much. Very much looking forward to rolling out some of these deals in the weeks ahead, and looking forward to what questions you may have after we hand the microphone off to our friend and colleague who's joining us virtually, Seamus.
Merci, Sean, and I couldn't be joining you from a better place. I'm in St. John's to attend the Energy NL annual conference, and that's where Newfoundland and Labrador's energy industry comes together every year to talk about our energy future. It is a room full of ambitious energy leaders who are ready to build the future. It's our job as government to help them do it. Le budget fédéral de cette année envoie un signal clair aux travailleurs, à l'industrie et aux investisseurs. On peut réaliser the grand projet au Canada. We're cutting red tape to give people the certainty they need, the stability that they deserve to get those jobs done. So workers will know there are good, well-paying jobs there that they can count on. Industry knows when they can build, has the confidence to know that they can build. Investors can have confidence in our growing economy. I've been plugging away as the chair of the Ministerial Working Group on Regulatory Efficiency for Clean Growth Projects, long title, but that is exactly what we're doing. We're updating the Impact Assessment Act to modernize and streamline the federal permitting process. We are upholding environmental standards. We are working closely with provinces and territories, and we are increasing Indigenous rights and participation. We're rolling out $93 billion in clean investment tax credits to create hundreds of thousands of really good jobs for Canadians.
Very good.
Or pay a prevailing union wage. That is a game changer. Plus a stream for our growing EV supply chains and expansion of the clean tech manufacturing tax credit to include critical minerals. These investment tax credits, they put workers at the center of our plan to boost economic growth, because it's workers who are going to get these projects built. You know, you look at Honda, who announced they'll be building 4 new EV plants to create thousands of direct and indirect jobs in Ontario. You look at World Energy GH2 in Newfoundland and Labrador and their wind to hydrogen project, 2,200 construction jobs, 400 for operation. And you look at the Trans Mountain Pipeline, almost 40,000 construction jobs, over 3,600 of them Indigenous peoples, with 26,800 person years of employment to follow. TMX will add 1/4 of a percentage point to our GDP in this quarter alone. That is economic growth that is led by workers. These are good, well-paying jobs. These are jobs that give certainty to workers, industry, and to investors. These are jobs worth investing in. Thank you.
Okay, we will now turn to questions, excuse me, in the room. We will start, we'll do one question and one follow for now. We'll start with David Thurton from CBC News.
Good morning. I just want to ask about the NCCOP report, and my question is for Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. The report describes behavior that might constitute treason, and yet we've seen no charges. Does that concern you?
Thank you for the question. I want to start by thanking the committee and the chair, David McGuinty, for their very serious work on this. I think that their work, the cross-party nature of that committee, the seriousness with which they have approached this, the real way that they have been fearless in putting the national interest first in this work is really exemplary and shows our parliament, our parliamentarians at their best. Our government takes foreign interference extremely seriously. I think your question is an important one because the findings of the committee are concerning, and they should be. As the Minister of Public Safety has said, we have confidence in our law enforcement bodies to do their job. And I am glad that our government has now put forward the strongest measures of any Canadian government when it comes to foreign interference, giving our law enforcement bodies the tools to act.
Deputy Prime Minister, you said that the findings are concerning, and you have confidence in all law enforcement to do the work that they have to do. I guess I would ask, doesn't the public, though, have a right to know who these parliamentarians might be, especially as we approach an election sometime soon, possibly this year, possibly more than likely next year?
Let me just say this. We take foreign interference really, really seriously, and I'm just going to speak personally for a minute. Having worked in authoritarian regimes myself, I take the fight in the world right now between democracy and dictatorship really, really seriously. And I think it's moving to a new level. And I think Canadians should not be naive about the fact that one of the objectives of authoritarians around the world is to undermine democracies. They want to make us think that democracy just doesn't work, and they want to show their own people that they should accept authoritarian leadership because democracy isn't fit for purpose in the 21st century. So I think all of us should take foreign interference really seriously. As Canadians, we should be really vigilant about defending our democracy. We should recognize this is a new time, and it's tougher. The global environment is more challenging than it has been in the past. I think the fact that we have this committee, that the committee has done such a serious job, that it has been a cross-party committee is really important and is real progress. I think the fact that we have put in place legislative tools that give us more of an ability as a country to fight foreign interference is important too. And I do really want to emphasize it needs to be law enforcement that takes the steps and takes the actions. The actual enforcement actions can't be politicized.
Marco Vegliati, iPolitics.
Thanks. Deputy Prime Minister, the PBO yesterday said that your government has a report that confirmed his findings on the rebates for the federal carbon levy. He says that you have prevented him from disclosing this information, even though he has seen it, and it's largely in line with what his report has said that this government's been critical of. Why has this government not shown Canadians this report and gone to the extent of effectively gagging the PBO about talking about it?
Thank you for the question. And I want to start by really sincerely thanking the Parliamentary Budget Officer for his work. He does a really hard job and a really important job. It's so critical for Canadians, for journalists, to have an independent body that does economic analysis that we can all look to. So I really want to say to the PBO, thank you very much for your work. Obviously, we are disappointed that in the published calculations by the PBO about the carbon rebate, the large emitters were included. But I really want to say I am 100% of the view that it was an honest mistake. And the PBO does a huge amount of work. They have a huge amount of data that they need to handle. And, you know, honest mistakes will be made. Our government is absolutely confident that the price on pollution returns more money to the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians. It is, and that there's just kind of common sense to that. This is a revenue neutral measure. The federal budget doesn't get a penny from the price on pollution. All the money that is collected goes back to Canadians. And actually, this is a measure where middle-class Canadians tend to get more of a benefit. I'm very glad that we're increasing. I'm turning to Sean here because we've worked with him and with Seamus. I'm very glad we're increasing the rural rebate. So we have great confidence that this is a measure which puts more money in the pockets out of 8 out of 10 Canadians, that helps middle-class Canadians, and also plays an important, a valuable role in having strong and robust climate policies.
David's questions from earlier. I understand you're saying matters of criminal charges have to be left to law enforcement agencies, but since we don't know who these MPs are that have been alleged to help foreign state actors, can you give any guarantee to Canadians that if they are Liberals, they will be removed from caucus?
The guarantee I can give to Canadians is our government takes foreign interference very, very seriously. We have put in place tougher measures than existed under the previous Conservative government to fight foreign interference. I'm just going to say personally, we and I are very grateful to this committee for its serious and thoughtful work. From my perspective, foreign interference is not a partisan issue. Foreign interference is an issue about the national interest. It's an issue about the fight between democracy and authoritarianism, and that is absolutely the way that our government does and will continue to approach it. And I want to re-emphasize, we take very seriously the role of law enforcement and the importance in our rule of law society of law enforcement making the decisions about law enforcement.
Christian Noël, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, ma question s'adresse à vous trois, mais principalement à la vice-première ministre. Il y a des membres du Parlement qui, en toute connaissance de cause, collaborent avec des pays étrangers. Vous dites, et vous avez dit dans cette conférence de presse à 6 reprises, si j'ai bien compté, que vous prenez l'ingérence étrangère au sérieux, mais pour montrer que vous la prenez au sérieux, il faut prendre des actions. Nous, on ne connaît pas le nom de ces gens qui ont fait sciemment ces choses-là. Les gens qui ont une code de sécurité secrète, comme vous, je présume, le savent. Donc, vous savez qui est responsable. Est-ce que vous vous sentez encore en confiance de partager une salle du caucus avec ces gens?
Merci pour la question. Et je veux souligner, maintenant en français, que c'est une très importante question. C'est un enjeu très important. Notre gouvernement prend au sérieux l'ingérence étrangère et je veux vraiment remercier la comité pour son travail. C'est un comité qui n'est pas partisan, c'est un comité avec des députés. Je sais.
Je comprends que vous voulez remercier tout le monde. On l'a entendu en anglais, je préférais passer, faire un fast-forward, si vous me permettez, parce que le temps est limité. Et là, ma question à vous, êtes-vous confortable de partager une salle du caucus avec des gens qui sciemment travaillent avec un pays étranger?
Mais permettez-moi de offrir une réponse qui est pleine en français parce que je pense que c'est mon travail aussi. Alors, le travail du comité est important et c'est important d'être clair avec les Canadiens et Canadiennes que c'est un comité qui inclut des membres de plusieurs partis politiques. Ce n'est pas un comité partisan et c'est important d'avoir un tel comité qui fait ce travail. C'est important que notre gouvernement a mis en place des lois, des pouvoirs plus fortes qu'on a eu en avance pour lutter contre l'étranger étranger. Et on comprend l'importance de cela. Il y a dans le monde aujourd'hui une grande bataille entre la démocratie et les pays et les leaders autoritaires. Et cette bataille existe dans notre pays aussi. Il y a des pays qui veulent compromettre notre démocratie. On ne peut pas permettre à ces pays de le faire. C'est un grave problème qu'il y a des députés dans notre Chambre des communes qui font partie de cela. Ce n'est pas... Ça doit être une question d'intérêt national, de sécurité nationale. Et pour moi et pour nous, évidemment, en tant qu'une partie politique, nous devons et nous allons faire le suivi à l'interne.
Quand on dit qu'on prend quelque chose au sérieux et qu'on ne fait pas les actions qui vont avec, quel message s'envoie à ceux qui sont responsables ici et à ceux qui sont responsables dans le monde? Est-ce que vous n'êtes pas en train, sans prendre des actions, sans expulser ces gens-là du caucus, envoyer un signe de vulnérabilité?
Je ne suis pas d'accord avec vous. On prend et on est en train de prendre et on va continuer de prendre des actions très concrètes. L'existence du comité et le fait que le comité a fait son travail et a publié cela, c'est une action importante. Au sein de notre caucus, on a déjà pris des actions et on va continuer de faire ça. On a des lois plus fortes qu'on avance pour aider notre gouvernement à lutter contre l'ingérence étrangère. C'est une chose très importante. Mais finalement, et c'est aussi important, le Canada, c'est un pays du droit. Et nous, notre gouvernement, respecte énormément les pouvoirs des agences comme la GRC. Et ce n'est pas pour les politiciens de donner les ordres à ces agences de loi. Mais nous avons pleine confiance dans ces agences et leur travail.
I'm going to ask a question from the moderator's chair. It's known that democracy thrives in sunlight, and you've talked about the attacks on democracy. And it's already been talked about that Canadians have lost confidence in our electoral system and our institutions, in part because of this foreign interference debate. Are you not concerned that by not releasing the names of the MPs who are involved and accused of what this committee is accusing them of, that you are further undermining confidence in the system, and why are we affording them that protection?
So let me just start by saying I don't think Canadians have lost confidence in our democracy. As someone who has been out knocking on doors a lot over the past few days, I have been talking to Canadians who love our country, who are so proud to be Canadian, are so grateful to be Canadian, and appreciate all the great things about our country, and recognize how lucky we all are to live in Canada and how important our democracy is to them, to their families, to us all. And I think broadly, Canadian democracy is strong, and I think Canadians recognize that. Are Canadians concerned by foreign interference in Canada, by efforts to interfere in our democracy? Absolutely, and they should be. And I am too, and our government is as well. The fact that we are having this conversation, the fact that a cross-party committee has done this work, a cross-party committee convened by the Prime Minister has done this work and published this work is a really important part of strengthening our democracy. And this is just one of many steps we've taken already in terms of strengthening our rules against foreign interference and the authorities we have to fight it. And, you know, we are going to keep on going. I do also want to emphasize, for us all, this is a new and different threat from what Canada has experienced in the past. That's why we need new tools, and that is why our government is putting new tools in place. But we are very, very seized of this issue, even as we respect the rules that are in place when it comes to law enforcement and when it comes to confidentiality of security information. That's part of being a rule of law society too.
Okay, but if we have potentially MPs still sitting in Parliament who this committee says wittingly participated with foreign governments to undermine our elections, does that not undermine Canadian confidence in our Parliament and in our elections?
I think Canadians recognize how lucky we are to be Canadian and how strong our democracy is. I think Canadians are smart and they recognize there is a very real threat. I think in the work of this committee, in the measures, the new and enhanced authorities our government has put in place, I think Canadians see that our government takes this threat seriously and is going to continue to act. And I do want to emphasize, I see this as not a partisan issue at all. I see this as an issue of the core national interest and the core strength of Canada's democracy. That is how our government is going to act.
J'aurais une question sur la taxe numérique, si vous me permettez. Parce que le CRTC vient d'émettre une possibilité, en fait, on va émettre une taxe de 5% sur les compagnies de streaming qui va rapporter 200 millions de dollars aux entreprises. Est-ce que ça veut dire que la taxe sur les services numériques, qui devait entrer en vigueur en janvier, qui ne l'est toujours pas, n'aura pas lieu, ou est-ce que vous allez l'ajuster?
La taxe numérique est inclue dans la législation du énoncé économique de l'OTAN, qui n'est pas encore entré en vigueur, mais qui a presque fini son passage législatif. Et les mesures dans ce loi restent dans le loi et entrera en vigueur le moment que le loi sera confirmée par le Sénat et le gouverneur général.
Okay, that concludes today's press conference. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.